Welcome to Sports Live Media on YouTube. It's your guy, Sports Live. We are doing Season 1, Episode 9 of Hoops and Pucks and Wednesdays. Oh my. We'll talk men and women's college basketball. We'll talk NBA G League, NBA regular basketball, NHL hockey, and any other hockey that goes with it. And the part that's for the Wednesdays, oh my, all games or matches take place Wednesday, January Wednesdays each week. Wednesday, January 14th, 2026. That's the games that will be in discussion today. Before we really get into this, let's go over the women's AP poll top 25 for this week in women's college basketball. You have number 1, UConn, number 2, South Carolina, number 3, UCLA. Number 4, Texas. Number 5, Vanderbilt. Number 6, LSU. Number 7, Kentucky. Number 8, Michigan. Number 9, Louisville. Number 10, TCU. Number 11, Iowa. Number 12, Maryland. Number 13, Oklahoma. Number 14, Ohio State. Number 15, Michigan State. Number 16, Ole Miss. Number 17, Texas Tech. Number 18, Baylor. Number 19, Iowa State. Number 20, Tennessee. Number 21, Alabama. Number 22, Princeton. Number 23, Notre Dame. Number 24, Nebraska. And number 25, Illinois. Before going on any further, we'll go and do women's college basketball games. I'll go over games who are being played, and then I'll come back through and tell you who I think is going to win the games. So, let's see. You have UNLV versus San Jose State. You have Utah State versus Fresno State. Wyoming versus Boise State. Colorado State versus Air Force. Merrimack versus Iona. Akron versus Massachusetts. Fairfield versus Marist. Mount St. Mary's versus Manhattan. Siena versus Sacred Heart. Southern Miss versus Texas State. New Mexico versus San Diego State, Lafayette versus Bucknell, St. Joseph's versus St. Bonaventure, Rhode Island versus VCU, George Washington versus DeQuesne, Boston University versus Lehigh, Holy Cross versus Army, Loyola, Maryland versus Colgate, Milwaukee versus Modern Kentucky, Canisius versus Niagara, Penn State versus Ohio State, St. Louis versus LaSalle, Charleston Southern versus UNC Asheville, Buffalo versus Ball State. You have Georgia Southern versus Georgia State. You have App State or Appalachian State versus Old Dominion, TCU versus West Virginia, Washington versus Indiana, Loyola and Chicago versus George Mason. In these games, here's who I have will win the games on this set of games. I have UNLV defeating San Jose State. I have Fresno State beating Utah State. Wyoming will defeat Boise State. Air Force will lose to Colorado State. Iona will defeat Merrimack. Massachusetts will beat Akron. Fairfield will defeat Marist. Mount St. Mary's will defeat Manhattan. Siena will defeat Sacred Heart. Southern Miss loses to Texas State. New Mexico loses to San Diego State. Bucknell will defeat Lafayette. St. Bonaventure will defeat St. Joseph's. Rhode Island will defeat VCU. George Washington defeats DeQuesne. Boston University defeats Lehigh. Holy Cross will defeat Army. Loyola in Maryland loses to Colgate. Northern Kentucky defeats Milwaukee. Niagara will defeat Canisius. Ohio State will defeat Penn State. LaSalle will defeat St. Louis. UNC Asheville will defeat Charleston Southern. Buffalo, I believe, will beat Ball State. Georgia Southern will beat Georgia State. Old Dominion will defeat App State. TCU will defeat West Virginia. Washington will defeat Indiana. And George Mason will defeat Loyola in Chicago. Now, there are a few more women's games, and so let's go over those. You have Fordham versus Davidson, Richmond versus Dayton, Cincinnati versus UCF, Providence versus Butler, Marquette versus Seton Hall, Winthrop versus Longwood, Presbyterian versus South Carolina, Gardner-Webb versus Radford, American University versus Navy, Youngstown State versus Wright State, and I have Detroit Mercy versus Cleveland State, Purdue Fort Wayne versus Green Bay, Ohio University versus Kent State, Eastern Michigan versus Miami and Ohio, Northern Illinois versus Toledo, Bowling Green versus Western Michigan, Oklahoma State versus Kansas, Troy versus UL Monroe, UCLA versus Minnesota, Nevada versus Grand Canyon, UAB versus Rice, North Dakota versus South Dakota, Iowa State versus Colorado, Baylor versus Utah. In those games, I have Fordham defeating Davidson. I have Richmond losing to Dayton, Cincinnati losing to UCF, Butler defeating Providence, Seton Hall defeating Marquette, Winthrop defeating Longwood, Presbyterian defeats South Carolina Upstate, Gardner-Webb loses to Radford, American University loses to Navy. Wins over Navy. Wright State will defeat Youngstown State. Detroit Mercy loses to Cleveland State. Purdue Fort Wayne will defeat Green Bay. Ohio University will defeat Kent State. Miami and Ohio will defeat Eastern Michigan. Northern Illinois will defeat Toledo. Bowling Green to defeat Western Michigan. Oklahoma State to defeat Kansas. Troy will defeat UL Monroe. UCLA will defeat Minnesota. Grand Canyon will defeat Nevada. Rice will defeat UAB. South Dakota will defeat North Dakota. Iowa State will defeat Colorado. Baylor will defeat Utah. That's your women's basketball games and my picks for those games. Now, for the men's college basketball, we got to go over the Associated Press Top 25 for this week. You have number 1, Arizona. Number 2, Iowa State. Number 3, UConn. Number 4, Michigan. And hello to you, Megout. Glad that you're here. Thank you for joining me today. Number 4, Michigan. Number 5, Purdue. Number 6, Duke. Number 7, Houston. Number 8, Nebraska. Number 9, Gonzaga. Number 10, Vanderbilt. Number 11, BYU. Number 12, Michigan. Number 13, Illinois. That's Michigan State for number 12. Number 13, Illinois. Number 14, North Carolina. Number 15, Texas Tech. Number 16, Virginia. Number 17, Arkansas. Number 18, Alabama. Number 19, Florida. Number 20, Louisville. Number 21, Georgia. Number 22, Clemson. Number 23, Utah State. Number 24, Tennessee. Number 25, Seton Hall. All right. So we have some games today. VCU versus, Rhode Island. Army versus Holy Cross. Chattanooga versus Wofford. East Tennessee State versus Western Carolina. Iowa versus Purdue. High Point versus Winthrop. Butler versus Xavier. Ole Miss versus Georgia. Illinois State versus Indiana State. St. Bonaventure versus St. Joseph's. LaSalle versus Richmond. Davidson versus George Washington. East Carolina versus South Florida. Tulsa versus Charlotte. Colorado versus Cincinnati. Lehigh versus Boston University. South Carolina Upstate versus Charleston Southern. UNC Asheville versus Presbyterian. Radford versus Gardner-Webb. Iona versus Rider. Pittsburgh versus Georgia Tech. St. Peter's versus Quinnipiac. Colgate versus Loyola, Maryland. Sacred Heart versus Siena. Niagara versus Canisius. Manhattan versus Fairfield. Furman versus Sanford. Southern Miss versus Troy. Coastal Carolina versus Marshall. Auburn versus Missouri. Kentucky versus LSU. Florida International versus Kennesaw State. Sam Houston versus Jacksonville State. In those games, I have VCU defeating Rhode Island. Army defeating Holy Cross. Wofford defeating Chattanooga. Western Carolina defeating East Tennessee State. Purdue defeats Iowa. High Point defeats Winthrop. Butler defeats Xavier. Ole Miss defeats Georgia. Indiana State defeats Illinois State. St. Bonaventure defeats St. Joseph's. LaSalle will defeat Richmond. Davidson will defeat George Washington. East Carolina will defeat South Florida. Tulsa will defeat Charlotte, or lose to Charlotte, I'm sorry, and East Carolina will lose to South Florida. Colorado loses to Cincinnati. Lehigh will defeat Boston University. South Carolina Upstate will defeat Charleston Southern. UNC Asheville will defeat Presbyterian. Radford will defeat Gardner-Webb. Iona will defeat Rider, or lose to Rider. Pittsburgh will lose to Georgia Tech. Quinnipiac will win over St. Peter's. Colgate over Loyola, Maryland. Sacred Heart will defeat Siena. Niagara will defeat Canisius. Fairfield will defeat Manhattan. Sanford will beat Furman. Troy will defeat Southern Miss. Coastal Carolina beats Marshall. Auburn will defeat Missouri. Kentucky defeats LSU. Florida International will defeat Kennesaw State. Sam Houston loses to Jacksonville State. No, I didn't draw this. This was just, these were basically the games that were going on. And I made my picks based on who I think was going to win the games. These are the games that are actually being played today, but then I'm just making my picks for who I think will win those. So we have a few more men's college games to go through. We have Lafayette versus Bucknell. We have UAB versus Tulane. We have Missouri State versus Western Kentucky. Middle Tennessee versus Louisiana Tech. San Diego State versus Wyoming. Duke versus Southern Illinois. Fordham versus St. Louis. Rice will play UTSA. Temple will play Memphis. South Dakota State will play North Dakota State. Louisiana will play Texas State. Illinois will play Northwestern. Vanderbilt plays Penn State. Utah will play Texas. Texas Tech will go against Utah. South Carolina will play Arkansas. North Carolina goes against Stanford. Virginia Tech versus SMU. Portland versus Pepperdine. Oral Roberts versus Denver. Nevada versus Utah State. Pacific versus Santa Clara. Loyola Marymount versus Oregon State. Arizona State versus Arizona. Michigan versus Washington. Duke versus California. TCU versus BYU. In those games, I have BYU defeating TCU. I have Duke defeating California. Michigan defeating Washington. Arizona defeats Arizona State. Oregon State to defeat Loyola Marymount. Santa Clara will defeat Pacific. Nevada defeats Utah State. Oral Roberts defeats Denver. Portland will defeat Pepperdine. Virginia Tech will defeat SMU. North Carolina defeats Stanford. Arkansas will defeat South Carolina. Texas Tech defeats Utah. Vanderbilt will defeat Texas. Penn State will defeat UCLA. Illinois will defeat Northwestern. Texas State will defeat Louisiana. North Dakota State will defeat South Dakota State. Temple will defeat Memphis. Rice will defeat UTSA. Fordham will defeat St. Louis. Drake will defeat Southern Illinois. San Diego State defeats Wyoming. UCF will defeat Kansas State. Louisiana Tech will defeat Middle Tennessee. Western Kentucky defeats Missouri State. Tulane defeats UAB. And Bucknell will defeat Lafayette. That's my men's basketball games. I'm going to go over the AP polls one more time. First for the men. Number 1, Arizona. Number 2, Iowa State. Number 3, UConn. Number 4, Michigan. Number 5, Purdue. Number 6, Duke. Number 7, Houston. Number 8, Nebraska. Number 9, Gonzaga. Number 10, Vanderbilt. Number 11, BYU. Number 12, Michigan State. Number 13, Illinois. Number 14, North Carolina. Number 15, Texas Tech. Number 16, Virginia. Number 17, Arkansas. Number 18, Alabama. Number 19, Florida. Number 20, Louisville. Number 21, Georgia. Number 22, Clemson. Number 23, Utah State. Number 24, Tennessee. And number 25, Seton Hall. For the women's AP poll top 25, you have number 1, UConn. Number 2, South Carolina. Number 3, UCLA. Number 4, Texas. Number 5, Vanderbilt. Number 6, LSU. Number 7, Kentucky. Number 8, Michigan. Number 9, Louisville. Number 10, TCU. Number 11, Iowa. Number 12, Maryland. Number 13, Oklahoma. Number 14, Ohio State. Number 15, Michigan State. Number 16, Ole Miss. Number 17, Texas. Number 18, Baylor. Number 19, Iowa State. Number 20, Tennessee. Number 21, Alabama. Number 22, Princeton. Number 23, Notre Dame. Number 24, Nebraska. And number 25, Illinois. All right. Now, we will go over now the NBA games for today, and then I'll make my picks. You have Toronto versus Indiana. You have Cleveland versus Philadelphia. You have Utah versus Chicago, Brooklyn versus New Orleans, Denver versus Dallas, New York versus Sacramento, and Washington versus the Los Angeles Clippers. Okay, so let's see. I have Indiana defeating Toronto. Cleveland will defeat Philadelphia. Chicago will defeat Utah. Brooklyn will defeat New Orleans. Dallas will defeat Denver. New York will beat Sacramento, and that's the New York Knicks. Washington will defeat the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, NBA G League games. You have versus Wisconsin, Delaware versus College Park, Long Island versus Capital City, Texas versus Memphis, Oklahoma City versus Rip City, Rio Grande Valley versus Mexico City, and San Diego versus South Bay. In those games, I have Wisconsin defeating Maine, College Park defeating Delaware, Long Island versus Capital City, and I have Long Island defeating Capital City. You have Texas defeating Memphis, Rip City defeating Oklahoma City, Rio Grande Valley defeating Mexico City, and I have South Bay defeating San Diego. All right, now let's get into the NHL hockey schedule for today. We have Seattle versus New Jersey, Philadelphia versus Buffalo, New York Rangers versus Ottawa, and you have Los Angeles versus Vegas. So in those games, I have Seattle defeating New Jersey, Philadelphia defeating Buffalo, New York Rangers defeats Ottawa, and Los Angeles will defeat Vegas. All right, so next we'll go look at some of the other hockey matches. In the AHL hockey, in the American Hockey League, you have Bellevue versus Laval. You have Wilkes-Barre Scranton versus Providence. You have Syracuse versus Rochester. I have Coachella Valley versus Texas, Ontario versus Colorado, and Abbotsford versus San Diego. In those games, I have Belleville defeating Laval. I have Providence defeating Wilkes-Barre Scranton. I have Syracuse defeating Rochester. I have Texas defeating Coachella Valley. I have Colorado defeating Ontario, and I have San Diego defeating Abbotsford. In the ECHL hockey for today, you have Reading versus Worcester, Jacksonville versus Florida, Indy versus Fort Wayne, and Kalamazoo versus Iowa. In those games, I have Reading defeating Worcester, Florida defeating Jacksonville, Fort Wayne defeats Indy, and Kalamazoo defeats Iowa. In the Professional Women's Hockey League, you have Toronto versus Boston, and I'll have Boston beating Toronto. In the NAHL, there are no games scheduled for today. In the SPHL, you have Birmingham versus Evansville, and I have Birmingham defeating Evansville. In the FPHL, no games are scheduled for today. In the NCAA college hockey in the men or women, there are no games scheduled. Let's see. In the ACHA Men's College Division I, no games are scheduled. In the ACHA Men's College Hockey Division II, you have the University of Montana versus Boise State. You have Lewis University versus Aurora University. And you have the University of Minnesota in Duluth versus University of Wisconsin EAU Clare. And you have Bethel University versus Gustavus Adolphus College. In that division, I have Gustavus Adolphus College defeating Bethel University. I have the University of Minnesota in Duluth defeating the University of Wisconsin EAU Clare. I have Boise State defeating the University of Montana. In the ACHA Men's College Hockey Division III, no games scheduled. In the ACHA Women's College Hockey Women's Division I and Division II, there are no games scheduled for today. So that is my hockey picks and everything like that. There is some other things. In other NHL hockey news, Patrick Kane of the Detroit Red Wings became the 50th player in NHL history to reach 500 goals, doing so with 3 minutes and 53 seconds left in the game during the third period. Doing this helped the Detroit team beat the Vancouver Canucks 5-1, and that took place on January 8th of 2026. So there you have it. Hoops and pucks and Wednesdays, oh my. Thank you very much for tuning in today for this broadcast. I do greatly appreciate it. If you will, please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the notification bell so you can be made aware of when I'm doing these live streams, when I have sports action videos, when I have sports education videos, again, when I broadcast live, or when I have breaking news in the sports world. If you wish to subscribe to the channel, it is greatly appreciated. You can do so by going to www.youtube.com, the slash symbol, the at symbol, SPORTSLOV, or you can go in the YouTube search tab and type in Sportslov Media as two words, SPORTSLOV, first word, media, second word, MEDIA. You'll know it's me because I have Sportslov Media burned into a basketball as my avatar. I'm also on Twitter X. My handle there is at BobAmin16. That is the at symbol, BOBAMIN 16. Just a word of note, we will have another live stream on Friday. I'm not sure what time yet, but it's going to be dealing with gymnastics, hockey, and basketball, and other things that we might find within that. And we will do that on Friday, and that will be a regular feature, but it may not happen every week due to scheduling and or other things, but we'll go with that for now. And we've got a lot of stuff to talk about on Friday. Just looking over stuff. We will have a lot to talk about on Friday, but hopefully it'll be a regular appearance on things, at least until the end of the respective seasons. We're also going to continue doing sports action videos. And just a word of note, starting this Saturday and going for much of the week, I will be doing my sports action videos, and I'll be doing a lot of sports action videos, and there will be a lot of stuff coming this week. So stay tuned for that. Any questions, comments relating to what we've talked about today? Well, if not, thank you very much for tuning into the broadcast today. Sportslov Media signing out. I hope each and every one of you have a wonderful day.